Welcome. The Private Sponsorship of Refugees program gives Canadians and permanent residents the opportunity to help settle refugees in Canada. Sponsors commit to providing financial and settlement assistance to refugees for 1 year, or until they can support themselves financially, whichever comes first. If you are part of a group of 5 or more Canadians, or permanent residents 18 years of age or older, who wish to sponsor refugees to Canada, this video will help you complete your sponsorship application. The Private Sponsorship of Refugees program is strictly for sponsoring refugees from outside of Canada. Before we start, read the Guide to the Private Sponsorship of Refugees program. It contains information you will need when applying. This guide is available on our website at canada.ca/G5-sponsors. The guide tells you who can and who cannot be sponsored as a refugee. A group of 5 may sponsor applicants who are recognized as refugees by either the United Nations Refugee Agency or by a foreign state. You will need to include proof of refugee status recognition for the principal refugee applicant. Note that Syrian and Iraqi refugees fleeing the conflict zone do not require this documentation. Groups of 5 may sponsor refugees who have been referred to them by a Canadian visa office through a refugee profile request. This will be explained later in the video. Groups of 5 and community sponsors may also sponsor Syrian refugees through the Blended Visa Office Referred (BVOR) program. The BVOR program will not be dealt with in this video. Sponsorship agreement holders, groups of 5, and community sponsors interested in sponsoring a Syrian refugee through the BVOR program should contact the Refugee Sponsorship Training Program at info@rstp.ca. Each of the 5 members of the sponsor group must meet basic requirements, including be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada, 18 years of age or older, have the financial means to be a sponsor for the sponsorship period, be able to provide emotional and social support to the refugee and the family, live in the community where the refugee is expected to live, and pass a criminality screening check. There are 3 steps to becoming a Group of 5 sponsor. Step 1. Obtain the application package. Step 2. Request a refugee profile if you need help deciding who to sponsor. Step 3. Complete, check, and submit your application. Let's go over each of these steps in detail. First, you can obtain the application package on our website at canada.ca/G5-sponsors. In the application package, there are several forms that must be completed. This includes the following forms: Undertaking/application to sponsor, Sponsor assessment, Settlement plan, Group of 5, Financial profile, Member of Group of 5, and the Document checklist. In addition, there are other forms that may need to be completed, depending on the circumstances of the refugee. Visit our website at canada.ca/G5-sponsors for a full list. This video will focus specifically on the Undertaking/application to sponsor form, also known as the IMM 5373. You can download it in PDF format from the application package. You must submit your sponsorship application together with the Refugees Application Package for Permanent Residents. This is also known as the Applying as a Convention Refugee or as a Humanitarian Protected Person Abroad, IMM 6000, and includes an instruction guide as well as the necessary forms to apply for permanent residence as a convention refugee or protected person abroad. We encourage you to help the refugee complete their application for permanent residence. Make sure the information included in both applications is the same. Your application may be returned to you if forms are missing or if forms are not completed and signed. We recommend that you complete the PDF form on your computer. This helps you avoid making mistakes that can slow down the application process. Make sure you have all your documents and information ready before you begin. We are going to walk you through the Undertaking Application to Sponsor IMM 5373 form, step by step. You can run this video using a separate window if you would like to follow along as you complete the form. Press pause to stop the video and play to start it up again. Answer each question by typing your information into the spaces. Be sure to answer all questions. If you need to stop, save the form on your computer by clicking Save right here. If there is not enough space on the form for the information you wish to provide, attach a separate sheet with more details. On that sheet, print the name of the sponsor and the name of the principal refugee applicant, the form's title and number, and the question number for which you are providing more information. On the form, you will see boxes that indicate for CIC use only. Do not enter information into these boxes. There are many sections like this on the first 3 pages of the form. With the undertaking/application to sponsor IMM 5373 form in front of you, let's get started. Since you are applying as a group of 5, you do not need to complete Section A. Start with Section B, Sponsorship Group. This is where we collect basic information on your group of 5 and personal details about your group leader or representative. Enter the group name and then the personal details of your group's representative. The representative should be someone who speaks one of Canada's official languages, English or French. If you do not have an English or French-speaking representative, you must complete a Use of Representative form, IMM 5476, to identify someone who can communicate with Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, formerly known as Citizenship and Immigration Canada, on your behalf. Since you are applying as a group of 5, you do not need to complete Section C. Let's move on to Section D, Group Members. In this section, you will list all the group members, starting with the group representative. Provide their personal details. Be sure to include any other name that a member may be known by, including birth name, maiden name, and others. If there are more than 5 people in your group, attach a separate sheet with their full personal details. There is no limit to the number of group members. It is important to answer truthfully and completely. If your application is incomplete, it may be returned to you. Section E, Refugee Applicants. Decide who you wish to sponsor. Sometimes a group would like to sponsor a refugee or family the group already knows. In this case, the refugee must be recognized as a refugee by the United Nations Refugee Agency or by a foreign state. Be sure to enclose proof of refugee status recognition for the principal refugee applicant. A photocopy or the original document is acceptable. However, if the refugee is from Syria or Iraq and has fled the conflict zone, this documentation is not required. A group may also decide that it would like to sponsor a refugee or family, but the group does not have a particular refugee or family in mind. You can request a refugee profile from Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. You must request and receive a refugee profile before you complete and submit the undertaking/application to sponsor IMM 5373 form. If your group has already identified a refugee to sponsor, you can skip this step. When submitting a request for a refugee profile, you can explain in detail the type of refugee you wish to sponsor in hopes that a match can be made. This might include the size of the refugee family or specific needs you are able to accommodate. The form to request a refugee profile is available on the web at canada.ca/G5-sponsors. Instructions on how to complete this form are also available on the website. You can submit your completed refugee profile request form to IRCC's Matching Center at matching-center@cic.gc.ca. Once you receive a profile for a refugee or family you would like to sponsor, this means you are sponsoring a refugee or family referred to you by a Canadian Visa Office. Be sure to include the refugee profile when you submit your refugee sponsorship application. Let's go back to Section E of the application form, Refugee Applicants. Part 1. Enter the contact details for the principal refugee applicant. The principal refugee applicant should be the family member who has the strongest refugee case. Refer to the guide for more information. For questions 2 through 7, enter the personal details of all family members and dependents of the principal refugee applicant. You must list all dependents in Section E, whether or not they are planning to come to Canada with the principal refugee applicant. If you require more space, list them on a separate sheet of paper and include the same information as required on the form. Dependents include spouse or common law partner of the principal refugee applicant, any dependent children, and/or any dependent children of dependent children. All family members listed in the sponsorship undertaking form must be the same as those listed by the refugee in their application for permanent residence form. Failure to list all family members and dependents could result in these people being permanently ineligible to be sponsored to Canada. Therefore, it is extremely important that this information is truthful and complete. For dependents, be sure to indicate whether or not they will accompany the principal refugee applicant to Canada. If you want to know more about who is considered a family member or dependent, see the Guide to the Private Sponsorship of Refugees program. Family members applying to come to Canada who are not considered dependents must have a separate sponsorship undertaking application form. Be sure to cross-reference or mention them in Section F of your application. Section F, Multiple Undertakings. This section links related sponsorship cases together if there is more than one. Family members who are not considered dependents must have a separate sponsorship undertaking application. For example, cousins or siblings would need to have separate sponsorship applications. But by filling out this section, you can ensure that these forms would be linked. Here you are asked to provide the name and date of birth for each principal refugee applicant you are sponsoring. It is important to fill out this section so that all linked sponsorships can be processed at the same time. Now on to Section G, Obligations of the Sponsoring Group. There are very important obligations for the sponsoring group. If the sponsorship is approved and the refugee family is resettled to Canada, the sponsoring group must provide support to all family members listed in the undertaking. This includes all family members that resettle in Canada, whether or not they originally planned to accompany the principal refugee applicant. Your obligations will normally be for 12 months. Section G, Consent and Disclosure of Personal Information. You must check one of the boxes in this section. Check the first box if your group is submitting the application package directly to IRCC. By checking this box, all members of the sponsoring group agree not to use or disclose any personal information provided to them by the principal refugee applicant. If the principal refugee applicant is submitting the package to IRCC, check the second box. By checking this box, all members of the sponsoring group give consent and authorize IRCC to collect the personal information they provided on the sponsorship undertaking. Section G. You may check the following box in this section to give IRCC permission to inform remaining group members if one of the sponsors is found ineligible to sponsor a refugee. It is important to note that, if you consent to this, the IRCC will not disclose the reasons for a sponsor's ineligibility to the remaining group members. However, the ineligible person will be identified to the group to allow them the opportunity to replace the ineligible group member and continue the process. Checking this box is optional. You are not required to consent to this disclosure. Section G is the declaration by the sponsoring group. Each person in your group of 5 must sign and date the form in the Groups of 5 signature area in this section of the application. By signing here, group members agree to share full responsibility for the refugees you are sponsoring. If there are more than 5 people in your group, attach an extra sheet with the signatures of the additional group members. If the terms of the undertaking are breached, for example, not providing support for the duration of the sponsorship period, all group members will be jointly and individually liable. Only original signatures are accepted. Copies or scanned signatures are not acceptable. Once you have completed the application, print the forms and sign them. It is extremely important that you keep contact information for all group members and the principal refugee applicant up to date with Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. If possible, provide email addresses for everyone in your group and for the refugees. You can update your information at canada.ca/G5-sponsors. This contact information section is also available in the application guide. Before you send in your application, go through the document checklist to make sure you are providing all required documents, including document checklist, undertaking/application to sponsor, sponsor assessment, settlement plan, group of 5, financial profile, member of group of 5. If you did not request a refugee profile from Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, you must also include the following: a completed application for Convention Refugees Abroad and Humanitarian Protected Persons Abroad IMM 6000 for the refugees you wish to sponsor, and the proof of refugee status recognition for the principal refugee applicant. A photocopy of the original document is acceptable. Note that this proof is not required for Syrian or Iraqi refugees. Make sure that the refugees you wish to sponsor complete all the forms found in the application for Convention Refugees Abroad and Humanitarian Protected Persons Abroad IMM 6000. If you requested a refugee profile, or if you used a representative to complete this form, also include one or both of these forms: the refugee profile you received, the use of a representative form. Note that if the refugee you have chosen to sponsor comes from a refugee profile, you do not need to complete the application for Convention Refugees Abroad and Humanitarian Protected Persons Abroad IMM 6000. If any of these forms are missing or incomplete, your application may be returned to you. With your application materials completed and collected, you are now ready to send them to Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. Mail the complete application package to the Centralized Processing Office, Winnipeg, 269 Main Street, Room 400, Winnipeg, Manitoba, R3C 1B2. For more information, visit us at canada.ca/G5-sponsors or visit the Refugee Sponsorship Training Program at rstp.ca.